welcome to our panel members, and also welcome Salim. Salim has joined in via online. So we're going to really just zoom into this space of industrial symbiosis, circular economy, so on and so forth. There's been few examples that were shared. I noted from Cape Town, there's been a number of tons that were diverted, and from our ISP provincial ISP, there's been also numbers that were diverted, and there's money that is there. I remember in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, there's been a study by Professor Godfrey that talks about billions of waste that goes to the landfills. So I'm glad that we are starting to take a bit of millions out of that space and be able to have our landfill sites benefit out of the airspace and be able to realize economy out of that. So having said that, to our panel today, the question is, how do we move to the next goal? Are we moving fast enough? Do we need to accelerate? And how do we accelerate? Looking at yourself from the governance point of view, regulatory, from a business, and also from the waste economy point of view. When we're moving towards the full scale of industrial symbiosis, we're not talking about waste only. We're talking about synergies that happens even amongst the material or the resources. It could be heat that can actually be shared within a park. It could be water that becomes shared from one company to another. It was a waste, but it becomes an input. But we have picked the low-hanging fruit, which is the waste in this case, and we've got a problem of waste in our country. But as we move forward, when we come after 5 years or after in the next biannual conference, say in 2 years' time, what kind of messaging do we want to see? And what kind of ISP deliverables or deliveries do we want to really be proud of, and how do we get there? I guess I managed to put a thought-provoking amongst the members, be it from ESCOM point of view, and be it from government and from business operatives point of view. So where do we start? And I will then invite there are a lot of questions there that are posted on the chat, and our coordinator from the room needs to actually pick which one are we able to ask, and so on and so forth. So Constance said there are a lot of questions there that posted on the chat, and that our coordinator from the room needs to actually pick which one are we able to ask. Okay, while they're picking up those questions from our coordinator in the room, then I'll give the space to our panelists to be able to share and be able to talk to us as the community within the waste economy and waste to resource economy. Over to you. I'll start by Sumaya.
Thank you. Is it on? Okay. Thank you, facilitator. From an ESCOM perspective, I think in terms of cementing our footprint in the circular economy and having tangible demonstrations of how ESCOM is transitioning from a historically coal-fired, dirty type of operation to one that is not only cleaning up its act in terms of renewables or the switch to renewables, but also looking at how do we create out of that transition to a lower carbon future, how do we take along the communities, how do we make that transition just, How do we include the communities, the industries around the Mpumalanga area, and how do we ensure that nobody's left behind? And I think the approach of industrial symbiosis is we have one opportunity to get it right, particularly in the power stations that we are transitioning. To this end, we've made a conscious effort to include, to minimize waste, to minimize the emissions of greenhouse gases, but also to look at the energy, food, water nexus by establishing a demonstration agrivoltaics plant, which looks at better utilization of available land, having raised or elevated PV, with agricultural activity underneath the PV that the community can get involved in. The objective in that is that the waste, we're looking towards installing an aquaponics system that will be run by Eskom. But the waste in your aquaponics system in terms of having, and it's quite a big unit, having fish waste going into building your crops or growing your crops, and then your crops taking the nutrients out of the water and then circulating that water. Just from the top of my head, this way of farming will use energy from the solar panels that will be installed. It will also reduce the dependence on raw water, as your system uses about 70 to 80% less water for the same kilogram of tomatoes, as an example, grown. And then you also have a protein source that you harvest every month or every few weeks. So this is going on over and above what's happening in terms of repowering with PV, with wind, with everything else.
Sorry. We seem to have a problem with the sound. Our people are saying they can't hear us. Yeah. Oh, those are all chats. Oh, you can hear us. Okay, no, that then we are sorted. Okay, sorry. Let's continue. Oh, they say sound is perfect. You're still talking about the tapping into the solar as a result of your
Yes, so that is the type of symbiosis that is not only, Eskom is not only striving for between industries, but also involving communities and uplifting their livelihoods and giving them a source of income in a sustainable manner.
Okay.
One of the examples. Thanks.
Okay. No, thanks a lot, Sumaya, for your inputs. Then I will then ask Basani to now share her take-home message and how do we move forward in reaching our new heights as a program, having gone through the process of listening to all presentations and so on and so forth. Basani, over to you.
Thanks, Chair.
Bring the mic. Yeah, just press it.
Thanks, Chair.
It's a long press.
But it's green. Oh, there we go. Okay, thanks, Chair. Being a government department, we obviously have to look at our mandate. So, am I closer? Okay.
Yes.
Sounds like I'm about to sing when I bring it too close. Yeah. So what I was saying is, being a government department, we obviously want to capitalize on our regulatory instruments, which will then ensure that the waste is diverted from landfill. One, it would be looking at separation at source. We need to develop regulations that would ensure separation at source or maximize. Some metros have already started. Some municipalities haven't yet started. So as a province, we are looking towards developing regulatory instruments that would ensure there is separation at source. The other would be regulatory instruments that would ensure that we do not issue new permits for landfill site because we don't have landfill space. And that would ensure that businesses, industry, municipalities, various role players ensure that they find innovative ways of ensuring that the waste is used optimally, instead of looking at the quick win, which would be to take the waste to landfill site. So when we then stop permitting new landfill sites and ensure that the ones that are existing, when they reach their lifespan, they are decommissioned properly. The other issue would be we need to look at regional integrated facilities. So one of the programs that we have in the province is developing an integrated regional waste facility that will look at different streams. That would ensure that circular economy takes place, because through the waste that comes from the various municipalities, the metros, it would go through this integrated facility. But that would ensure that we have the volumes, which would then speak to how much we've diverted from landfill. That would speak to how much has been recycled. That would ensure that we then support SMMEs through what they can produce out of what goes through that integrated facility. So we can manage and we can report on what goes through there. So that would be one of the initiatives. Obviously, the program that we have on supporting our SMMEs, our buyback centers, emerging buyback centers, we would need to upscale that program, because now that is at a community level. We would ensure that the community then looks at their waste as gold, look at various initiatives, start up cooperatives, ensure that our cooperatives are well supported, ensure that our cooperatives have enough streams, waste streams, in order to sustain themselves, but ensure that those startup or those SMMEs can generate revenue to ensure community development, job creation, and look at waste as a source of income. So that would then be one of the programs that we will look at. From a climate change point of view, is obviously now the program that we're looking at then at industries is, I didn't want to quote it on the presentation. We actually have a huge ambitious target of reducing 50 megatons in our delivery agreement, of which when you look at that target, it's a very big target. But we've seen that through the industrial symbiosis and the RACPs and supporting SMMEs that are high emitters, we can ensure that we contribute. Not that we're going to reduce, but we can contribute. So upscaling of such programs. Obviously, as a department, we need to leverage through your NCPC entities, through other organizations, that we can then tap into industry. Where we do not have direct access to industry, we can then use an industrial symbiosis programs to tap into those various industries. Then we can upscale. As a department, obviously it's not a program that we can do on our own. We need the collaboration, we need the networks in order to generate savings, whether it's water savings, whether it's energy efficiency, whether it's job creation. But the networks are very key and are very important into ensuring that we upscale the program. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Basani. And then we're going to move to Bunolo from the Few Co-ops SA, who will share quickly, according to him, what needs to happen quicker and what needs to change in order for us to push forward with this waste economy, industrial symbiosis. Over to you, Ntate.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've heard the previous two speakers, especially looking at Sumaya from ESCOM. ESCOM, they have created what is known as the energy water nexus, and they are trying to look into people who are into that sector and as to how they can be helped. But we, as communities right through South Africa, we exist in the form of cooperatives, primary cooperatives at local municipalities. So existing as such, we have already worked around the food energy water nexus, and hence the organization is known as Food Energy Water Tertiary Cooperative in South Africa. So We have people existing within that nexus attached to food, as you were speaking, to integrated aquaculture, whereby you are farming fish and you're having energy and feeding your communities. We have people already in that industry. We're just waiting for government entities or players like SOEs like ESCO to come to feel co-ops and to see as to how we can work around the structures that we have already created, and especially within the Gauteng government as well, and as well as all the provincial governments. We are looking at the government for creating an enabling environment for cooperatives to thrive. Because most of the time when governments speak, they speak in terms of SMMEs, forgetting that at the ground level you have cooperatives, and cooperatives are the only model that can emancipate people in mass out of poverty, and not SMMEs. So please, we request the government to look into cooperatives and to look as to how they can create an enabling environment for cooperatives to drive whatever that the government wants to drive forward. I thank you.
Thanks a lot. I think it deserves some hands. Let's clap for others as well. I think he's more. I mean, he's living up to the name of the company that talks to co-ops. So he's very advocating around that area, that they are open, they are available. So we need to be coming together to lend a hand. And so thanks a lot for that. And I'll now hand over to Lerato to just give us her inputs in this space where we're currently finding ourselves. At least Lerato is also one of the business women who is running the business within the waste to resource and recycling and so on and so forth. Lerato, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Even though you ambushed me. So I'm happy to have this platform just to share our insights. So what I want to highlight, and which has been the key theme of this conference in the past 2 days, is that in order to achieve a circular economy, in a sense, we need to collaborate. And I think that is part of what we're doing, working together with yourselves as the NCPC and GDOT, who have been extremely supportive of the work that we do, including the National Department of Environment. However, what is disturbing is that as I look in this room, and perhaps forgive me in advance, but there is one voice that is missing in this conversation, and that is of the municipalities. And Basani was saying, in order to solve the problem of waste, the municipalities need to look at innovative ways to bring about solutions that will benefit the environment. And given that municipalities are the custodians of waste, it is highly, again, disturbing that they're not forming part of these very important conversations. When you work in the waste space, as we do, we come into contact with waste pickers on a day-to-day basis. We work with waste pickers, mostly women, who operate from the landfill sites. We work a lot with buyback centers that are mostly run by women. And a lot of them don't receive the kind of support that we often hear being thrown around. It's almost as it's talk shop and then we move away. there are a number of challenges that as small business also we experience on a day-to-day, especially working with the municipalities, because they are, again, the service providers, and waste being an essential service, it becomes one of the priority services, and that should actually be receiving the most attention. And I think, as we have seen now with COVID, a lot of people were working from home. Consumption increased, and as a result, waste also increased. But service delivery was, in a way, also compromised, because we didn't know as small business how to respond. We were not prepared, just like any other industry or sector. We were not prepared to respond to providing the waste in that environment. And then you get industry, and just to mention again that we operate a materials recovery facility based in an industrial area in Garankuwa. We're surrounded by a lot of industrial waste generators. During COVID, we saw a decrease in activity in the industrial areas, but to some extent, waste remained at optimal levels, despite the reduced activity. And yet, as waste service providers, we are almost locked outside of the opportunity. I'm going to call it the opportunity to provide waste. And this is where I think we appreciate the industrial symbiosis program, where it should play a role in matching us as small business and the waste generators so that we can exchange materials. However, in our case, and in most cases, especially in the townships, where you find big business comes into the townships to do business with us. And I'm going to make the example of the retail industry. So they come, they set up big shopping centers, big shopping malls. You have these big names coming as anchor tenants to conduct business in the townships. They generate a lot of waste, i.e., as an example, your packaging materials, such as your plastics, your cardboards. And by the way, plastics is the biggest nuisance, as we may very well be aware, which mostly ends up polluting even our water resources. So our function is to try and capture that at source and ensure that it gets diverted from even reaching the landfills. However, the big business prefer to do business with other big business. So what you find is that these guys will set up or have already set up systems where the waste that they generate will be sent back to their DCs, what they call their distribution centers. So we don't get access to that type of waste. So i.e. ourselves, your Gogo Dlaminis, and all the other waste pickers in the value chain miss out on those opportunities. So I think it's very opportune at this time for the Industrial Symbiosis Program to intensify its efforts in those areas, particularly where big business is concerned. Because as a small business, it's very difficult to knock on the door to say, hey, I'm a waste service provider. There's all sorts of hoops that one needs to jump in order to get access. So I think we need to look at access going forward. We need to intensify the efforts where big business can work together with small business to look at solutions, practical solutions to divert the waste from ending up in the landfills. And by that I mean getting to the waste at the point of generation. That has all sorts of benefits that will accrue not only to business, but also the municipalities as well.
Okay. No, thanks, Lerato. And let's get our last comments and speaker from, thanks for initiating, because people have forgotten to clap hands. Okay, but thanks, Lerato, for those comments and sharing the challenges that SMEs probably face in terms of this waste economy and having big business talking to big business. But while at the same time they need to be playing their role as well. So it's an area that we need to look at as a collective from the NCPC as an ISP point of view. So then I'll now give to Mashela your inputs.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Mashela Makobela. I come from Limpopo, Department of Economic Development, Environment and Tourism. And thank you so much for ambushing me. I really appreciate it. From Limpopo point of view, Limpopo is typically rural. We are characterized mostly by agriculture and mining sector. So I think the question would be that now, as the department, how then do we take advantage of the waste that are being generated out of agriculture and out of mining sector? And then how then do we get our communities, especially around the mining sector, how then do we organize them to take part in the circular economy? How then do we take advantage of the waste that has been generated by the mining sector? Because we realize that most of the waste within the province, especially in the mining sector, are coming to Gauteng province. Mm-hmm. So then we need to make sure that, especially in terms of the legislative framework, how then do we develop some policies or some legislation that will force the mining sector to ensure that the waste that are being generated from the province remain in the province are being utilized as resources by our own community within the mining sector. The same thing with the agricultural sector. A lot of, especially around the Mopani district, we have a lot of agricultural waste, such as sawdust. We have a lot of sawmills there. So what do we do with those sawmills? There are a lot of opportunities, especially since I think we got involved with NCPC in 2019, and through our collaboration with NCPC, we realized that we have a lot of potential within the province. So then, how then do we take advantage of what we have realized with NCPC? How do we take advantage of that as the province to make sure that we develop our own communities within the province? So what we take from here is that we need to sit down, especially as the Department of Environment, to come up with some policies and some legislative framework that will ensure that our own waste remain within our province, and to ensure that we develop our own SMEs. As I said, most of our waste, they come to Gauteng province. Especially the waste, the plastic waste, we don't manufacture, we don't beneficiate. We only collect and bring to Gauteng province. Then how then do we develop those waste collectors, waste pickers, to make sure that rather they beneficiate within the province, and then they sell it at high prices? So that's what we need to take home to when we live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot to our panelists. I don't know if the time allows us, but time doesn't really allow us. We have ran out of time, and those questions that would have been posted on the online, we will endeavor to answer them through if you've got a burning question there on the online chats between now, before we close, just put your email address and your question. Then our facilitator or coordinator will then take those questions, and then we'll be able to answer them nicely or in a very direct through online. So to our panelists, I really want to thank you for making time. Thank you for coming and share with us, as I indicated, that this program is not owned by NCPC, but it is coordinated by NCPC. It's a program that belongs to South Africa. And together we are able to realize the SDG goals. Together we're able to realize the potential that lies within the green economy, within the waste economy. And we should also be mindful when we become innovative in our policy framework, in our policy corners, to say, how do we then create more off-takers in terms of the green products? Like, for instance, if we could have a situation where provincially could actually say, we want all our, let's say 30% or 3% for a start to be green procurement, then you know that you are creating market and the products will follow the market because there is an off-taker. So that will then drive this waste economy to another level. I'm looking forward to the next biannual conference. I think my ambitious target will say we should be able to hit 1 million tons of waste diverted from the landfills at ease. I mean, we've got 9 provinces in the country and we generate millions and millions of tons probably every month. So we should be able to divert that and bring it into the business and drive the economy, then create better livelihood, create jobs, inspire the future, and be the better South Africa. So I'm banking on you in your own corner and spaces to say, go and be the influence that you want to see when we meet again in the next biannual conference, wherein we'll be hoping to have more tangible results and we would have expanded. So when we come to your provinces, there's going to be workshops that are ongoing. Please make time so that you are able to participate and invite your SMEs, invite your co-ops, because that's where the knowledge is. So out of that knowledge, you're able to package your business and we are able to do technical assistance from the NCPC. In that technical assistance, some of this involved going through some testing of certain materials. Say you've got a product, we check the strength. So we are able to say these products meet the standard and it can be in the market. Then eventually when we do that, then we are trying to stimulate the market. We are doing what we can, but together we can make it and we'll win. With those few words, I just want to clap to appreciate everyone who attended. You came from far and local. You make your time and you're able to stay until this time because you really understand and believe into the cause that we've actually taken. So with those few words from the chair, I really want to thank you, and let's clap hands for our panelists as they are going. And eventually, then we have come to the end of our session. We shall meet again. It's almost said to say goodbye, but there's still some refreshments there. If you need to grab coffee or tea, you can do so. For those who will be traveling local and afar, please travel safely. Some of you are going to fly safely, and then until we meet again, and God bless you. Thank you.